In June 2026, President Donald Trump chose a highly theatrical venue to sign a new peace pact with Iran. He gathered diplomats inside the Palace of Versailles, specifically the Hall of Mirrors. Columnist Schenker Iyer noted the heavy irony of the setting. This is the same room where the 1919 Treaty of Versailles was signed, a document that famously failed to secure peace and instead helped foment a Second World War. The central promise of the New Deal sat in Clause 1. It called for an immediate and permanent termination of military operations on all fronts, including those in Lebanon. That promise didn't survive the afternoon. Within hours of the signing, Israel launched 12 air raids on multiple locations in Lebanon. The reaction from Iran was swift. They canceled scheduled diplomatic talks in Switzerland and abruptly shut down shipping through the Strait of Hormuz. The peace deal had become a geopolitical mirage. It projected an image of stability on paper that vanished the moment the first sorties were launched. This diagram reveals the core structural failure of the agreement. The United States and Iran signed a ceasefire for a region being bombed by Israel, a third party that never signed the document and wasn't bound by its terms. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu was explicit about his refusal to cooperate. He insisted Israeli forces would remain in Lebanon for as long as he deemed necessary. His cabinet allies were even more vitriolic. National Security Minister Itamar Ben-Gvir called for an end to restraint, demanding that the military, quote, go berserk to protect Israeli citizens. This triggered a rare and public reprimand from U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance. He warned the Israeli cabinet that they could not simply kill their way out of every security problem, reminding them they were attacking their only remaining powerful ally. A treaty designed to neutralize foreign adversaries had instead triggered a deep and public rift in the diplomatic relationship between the White House and Jerusalem. The logistics were equally shaky. The memorandum set a 60-day deadline for complex nuclear deblending, a process that has historically taken nearly 2 years to negotiate and implement. Then came the financial promises. The MOU called for a $300 billion reconstruction fund for Iran, but the text didn't specify who would pay. This omission created immediate panic among Gulf states, fearing the U.S. would force them to foot the bill. The deal managed to alienate the domestic public in both countries. In Iran, hardline supporters and anti-regime agitators both felt betrayed, one side for the perceived weakness of the terms, the other for the deal's role in strengthening the regime. In the United States, the Republican base was equally furious. Senator Bill Cassidy voiced the common sentiment that the deal was a total capitulation to Iranian interests. The deal began to collapse because its core clauses weren't actionable plans. They were ambiguous placeholders that enraged the very constituencies they were supposed to satisfy. Despite the logistical dead ends and the bipartisan backlash, the treaty served a specific purpose that had very little to do with Lebanon or nuclear blending. Iyer's thesis suggests the agreement was driven not by diplomatic strategy, but by sheer economic compulsion. The evidence is visible in the immediate reaction of the financial markets to the mere news of a peace deal. This chart shows the disconnect. While geopolitical stability was plummeting, the market priced in the peace anyway. Commodity prices dropped and stock indices rose, regardless of the reality on the ground. With midterm elections approaching, the political value of domestic economic relief outweighed the actual success of the treaty. For the administration, the appearance of peace was a tool to manage the markets. It's a dynamic that brings to mind Leo Tolstoy's observation in War and Peace that kings are merely the slaves of history, swept forward by forces larger than their own vanity. The 2026 pact reveals a recurring reality. Major foreign policy shifts are frequently domestic economic maneuvers hiding behind a diplomatic facade.